Hello and welcome. Consumers are increasingly going digital. Everything we do is digital, but are companies responding in the way that they should? What are the challenges that they're facing in order to deliver to more digitally attuned consumers? Well, I'm joined by Nigel Fenwick of Forrester, who's going to try and explain and help us understand the digital dilemma that companies face and whether they're doing the right things in order to respond. Nigel.
Well, it's great to be here to talk about this. One of the challenges a lot of companies have is, what do they mean by digital? What is this digital thing that's going on, the digital transformation? And the fundamental challenge that most companies have is that the experiences that their customers have are set not by themselves or even people in their industry. The experiences that they have, the digital experiences they have, are set by companies across different industries. The likes of Amazon or Uber may be setting the experiences. So if you go and stay in a hotel, your expectations of what the digital experience of staying in that hotel, that could be based on the last time you bought something from Amazon or you went on an Uber ride or whatever. And so
everything is an app, it's instant.
Right, so, but these changes happen sort of incrementally, right? You get a new app update and you suddenly find you can do something else on your app that you weren't able to do. That changes your expectation. And so your expectations are being constantly reset by the companies that you have these experiences with. What that causes is an imbalance, right? Because your perceived value of the benefit, the value you get from an experience with a company is based not on the experience of that company, but lots of other companies. So part of the digital dilemma is how do you constantly change the experience to reset and deliver the value to customers? And the way companies do that is to radically rethink the way they create value and deliver value to customers, help them get to the outcomes.
Right, but I think the first step, as you say, is that if I'm a hotel company, I should be thinking of Uber as not as a competitor, but as someone who's an experienced competitor. I mean, as in at least in the customer's mind.
Yes.
Which are companies doing that?
Well, so it's once you understand that, now you understand. Well, we can't just say, okay, we've got to build a new mobile app and then that just solves the problem. That solves the problem, right? Yeah. It's actually building an environment where changing that experience becomes the norm, right? We have to build a company that's designed to constantly evolve, to constantly change. And most companies today are not built to constantly evolve and change. This is why you see a lot of pressure on companies to create agility. Right? The reason why you need that agility is because the expectations of customers are constantly changing, so you have to constantly deliver change to the customer in order to create value for the customer in the long term. So it's changing a lot of dynamics about business. The rules of business effectively are being rewritten, right? So the way we've designed and built businesses for the last couple of 100 years, which has worked great, won't work in the next 10 years, right? It's not working today. Right. The successful companies today are rethinking their business model. They're rethinking how they bring teams together, how they measure people, how they build and design products. And they're building digital experiences at the heart of that, right? So they're understanding that the way you create value for a customer is about delivering an outcome. And if you can use the technology to help deliver that outcome in a new way, in a better way, make it easier, more valuable for the customer, then you can create something that gives you greater market share, it attracts customers, and changes the business. And sometimes it's a radical disruption in the marketplace. More often it's an incremental shift. You've seen these incremental changes that are happening.
Right. So if you were to, talk to a company who's, let's say, an automotive company, so selling, let's say, an old world product in a new world environment, right, so to speak, how would you define their challenges, number one? And number two, how would you ask them to or advise them to go about responding to this digital?
Well, I'm glad you picked on the automotive industry because I'm a bit of a car geek. So, one of the things that I think is interesting, you think about the automotive industry and they look at how they sort of try and design technology into the car, and a lot of it's sort of bolted on to the design of the car. Tesla's a little bit different. Tesla's designed the car around technology, right? And so they can change the way the car operates the same way as most companies change, like how the smartphone operates. So they deliver a new app update, and the phone changes. So if you design the car around technology, one of the things you have to think about is, how do we design it to fit inside the customer's existing technology ecosystem? that really means thinking about how do you design the car around the smartphone, right? Instead of saying, okay, the smartphone is just something we stick in the car and maybe get some apps off, how do you engineer the experience of driving a car from using the smartphone as a computing device that you can be moved from one car to another? And so I could take my phone and step into my wife's car and have it automatically update all the customizable features of that car based on the settings that are in my phone. Right? Or I could go and get into a rental car and it changes my seat position, the mirrors, the radio stations, the temperature, the atmosphere, the driving experience. Maybe you change the acceleration and performance of the engine based on the characteristics, preferences of the customer. You design it around the digital experience of the customer. And then if you're designing a platform around that, then if you're a car manufacturer, then what you're doing is looking at how all of those cars in the line can take that digital experience and drop that into any car in the line and replicate that. Not only that, but now you're collecting data about that customer and you're collecting it through the smartphone app, right? So you don't need to have everything go through, very sophisticated apps that are built into the car. You can build it into the app on the phone and collect the data that way and gain insight about the customers and the behaviors to help create more value for the customer. So that would be my approach, is to start with the customer outcome. And some customers don't want to own a car, right? They want a driving experience, but they don't necessarily want to own a car. Well, if they don't want to own a car, then how do you deliver that experience without ownership? There's obviously ways of doing that, looking at business model changes to be able to do that. But it's a different way of thinking about the way you satisfy the outcome. Instead of just thinking about products and services and engineering a better car, now you think about how do we deliver the outcome and how do we engineer a service experience, a product experience, and a digital experience. What I typically describe in my research, you have to design the experiences that deliver the outcomes, that satisfy the desires. It's all about satisfying the desires.
Right. So if I were to ask you to, give a prognosis of sorts and look at the year ahead or maybe a couple of years ahead, what do you see changing, and in terms of, let's say, traditional experiences being influenced by new world experiences, and the examples that you gave of how I could potentially go into a rental car and a lot of things around the dashboard change because that's the way I drive and that's the music I listen to and that's my seat preferences. That's a great example. How much of this do you see happening in the next couple of years, and what's going to be like, are there going to be some fundamental transformation?
So I think the biggest transformation, we're already seeing signs of it, right? So there's sort of the human-machine interface. So voice, you've seen this evolution in the voice interfaces for the last 15 years. It's been evolving pretty steadily, but the radical shift has come in the last couple of years. With the introduction of Siri, I think was probably a key game changer. But now that you have Alexa with Amazon, and the sort of the investment that's going into that, the difference with Amazon is it's making it much easier to bring it into people's lives. So all of those Amazon customers are able to sort of get that experience and exposure that they haven't had before, and it's a lower cost and much easier to do. As you add the ability to dial out on make phone calls through that interface, so as the intelligence behind the interface increases, then that becomes a much more natural way of interfacing with the technology. So that changes the way we interact with the technology. And then the ability for using machine learning, cognitive computing, getting computers to essentially train themselves to improve the outcome. Once you have that, then that's a big game changer in many industries, right? So look at the financial services market. If you can get a computer to learn how to play Go better than a Go champion can, what happens when you say to that computer, learn how the stock market works, right? And figure out how to do that better than a human being. Now, there's a lot of companies that are doing automated trading already, right? But once you get a computer that can teach itself how to outplay any human being on the planet, now you have a computer that can change the game in the investment market overnight because they can guarantee a better return, right? So those kind of things, I think, we're just at the cusp of starting to see some of those changes. And it'll change the way we think about how we, as a business, how we make money, how we deliver services, how we create value, but also as consumers, how we extract value from the brands that we work with.
exciting and sometimes frightening world to look forward to. Nigel Fenwick, thank you very much for
Thank you.
us.
Okay.
Thank you.